Um, this morning I read an article in the Telegraph. Don't ask me why I went to the Telegraph, but I went to the Telegraph. And I think possibly because I was linked to it from someone else. And I read two articles that were written by Miranda Devine. The first one was the sort of the header on the website, which was entitled "Being Straight No Longer Normal, Students Taught." And the other one was on her blog, "The Thought Police Telling Kids Heterosexuality is Not the Norm." And it really made me really distressed and really sad at the simplicity of the arguments of her article and the inherent homophobia of the article. And so I spent most of my day penning a response to the article that she'd written on the blog. And I thought maybe it's easier to access this way than sort of posting a Word document somewhere for people to see. So I just wanted to read out something that I took a couple of hours mulling over today. Just because I feel like you can't let that stuff slide. There's so much stuff that you read and you're like, that's really made me angry, and you go off and you do your washing up and then you watch your television show. And you don't actually combat it in any way. Yeah, so I'm going to read from this document that I've written because I can't remember it all and it makes me too angry, and I'll go off on a tangent if I don't read it. So I'm going to read this. If the government's planned Proud Schools program existed back in the late 1990s, when I was a young, gender non-conforming, same-sex attracted, isolated young person in Year 7, physically refused entry to the girls' toilets, and sprayed daily with the most vitriolic, homophobic taunts imaginable, high school and life would have been a lot more tolerable for me. A program that aims to challenge dominant discourses that promote homophobia, sexism, racism, transphobia, while at the same time alerting kids who are bullied and marginalised that they're okay, that they're valid humans, and they deserve to be treated equally. It's not propaganda, but a progressive education that is most desperately needed at the moment. It was with a visceral, painful, heartbreaking pang that I read both the Daily Telegraph's disturbingly simplistic, deeply homophobic lead article this morning, and then Miranda Devine's equally sort of problematic blog about it. There isn't a problem in stating a statistical fact. It is and may be the case that, in the last census, more Australian people define themselves as heterosexual than homosexual, or other many multifarious identities. It does, however, become really problematic when what is more common becomes synonymous with normal, with healthy, with right. Heterosexism is made manifest in the way society privileges normative heterosexuality, and in doing so serves to pathologise, stigmatise, demonise and discriminate against those who don't fit this very limited mould. Heterosexism and the homophobia which can stem from it is so pervasive, and while at times it might not be malicious, it's everywhere. Heterosexism is when the default assumption is that you're straight. It is when your parents or teachers chastise or become distressed by non-conforming children for failing to fit into neatly defined roles of girls or boys. Heterosexism is when a traumatic breakup with a same-sex partner of 3 years is rendered less significant when compared with a straight workmate's messy divorce. Heterosexism is when there is little or no accessible, visible representation of sex and gender diversity in the media, in advertising, in the arts, in literature, on television. Heterosexism is visible in the denial of same-sex couples to legally marry, as silly a decision as this might be for some people. It is visible in gender stereotypes, which feeds a homophobia evident when gender non-conforming people face harassment in the street, in public bathrooms, in hospitals, in the workplace, in their own homes. Devine's choice pickings from the Proud Schools consultation report fails to mention the fact that we know that sex and gender diverse young people have a higher rate of suicide, homelessness, a higher than average high school dropout rate. They're more likely to experience verbal and physical harassment and violence than their heterosexual peers. Take a look at the frightening daily tally of casual homophobia in social media stack up in real time on nohomophobes.com. As at 4:30 today, The website have recorded 28,650 tweets posted since midnight that contain the word faggot. Given a substantial number of young people utilise social media like Twitter and Facebook, it's compelling evidence that homophobic bullying and casual homophobia is rampant among this group of people. The Proud Schools program aims to provide kids a reflection of the diversity of real life and tackle the very real and problematic culture of homophobia. The program is not about indoctrination or propaganda. It is about challenging these unbalanced stats by unpicking the virulent and culturally embedded homophobia which continues to feed them. Devine says there's no evidence that homophobic bullying is a big problem in New South Wales schools. Within a system which by default privileges heterosexuality, consistently denies its all-pervasive and systemic homophobia, sexism, racism, misogyny, is there any wonder that homophobic bullying goes unrecognised? Or is it any wonder it's so easily dismissed, disguised as just another isolated act of schoolyard ribbing? How can kids report homophobic bullying when school principals deny that there were even any gay students in their schools? By reporting homophobic bullying, regardless of whether they are gay or not, many young people risk having to come out, something they may not wish to do. And who would blame them? This extends again to the ridiculous quibbing about percentage of young people who identify as same-sex attracted. Devine is loath to believe that statistics are so high, citing studies which point to lower numbers of homosexual and bisexual identifying men and women. Devine implicitly suggests that somehow such low stats mean we didn't bother tackling this issue in schools or in life. Imagine if we spoke of Indigenous health and education in the same manner. That attempting to improve life expectancy, social justice issues, literacy, health care, preventing deaths in custody was a pointless activist pursuit because Indigenous Australians make up such a small percentage of our population. What a ridiculous argument. That even one child has to endure the daily torment stemming from homophobia, as goes for racism as well, is just one too many. Of course the statistics are low. Given the current context, one which privileges an idealised, middle-class, white heterosexuality, there's a reluctance for many people to come out, to identify as sex and gender diverse, to say, hey, I am gay. Society, which is both blatantly and covertly homophobic, doesn't allow people to come out this easily. How very disturbing a picture indeed it is to think that through the discussion of diversity of gender and sexuality, young students struggling with their sexuality can be made to feel safe at school, valid in their feelings and normal, that they are okay, that life is going to be okay, that they might survive high school. Equally disturbing to fathom is the impact such a program such as Proud Schools could have on these children's peers. God forbid the program inspire a more open-minded, tolerant student base. And tolerant is a really horrible word because it's not even about tolerating. Tolerant means that somehow you shouldn't be tolerating something and you're being lenient, but I couldn't think of another word when I wrote this. But to think that a program could foster a more open-minded, respectful generation of humans is enough to make your brain explode. What Miranda asks are prepubescent children to make of such programs, that they can be whoever they want to be, and in doing so can achieve anything that they would like, to achieve amazing, great things, to make amazing friends, that they are okay, no matter how they identify. What an empowering place to start.